Good morning, students. I hope you are all doing good. Let us see what we are going to discuss in today's class. Good morning, students. In previous class, we have seen how equilibrium will be established in different states of matter. Those are between solid and liquid, liquid and gas, even in solid and gas also we have seen. Now, in today's class, we will go through equilibrium in solutions. What is that? Equilibrium in solutions. In that equilibrium, how it is established in solid and liquid solutions. We are going to see how equilibrium will be established in solid and liquid solutions. Okay, before going to the topic directly, we want to know one definition, that is saturated solution. What is meant by saturated solution? For example, let us consider NaCl plus water. Everyone knows that. Let us take some amount of water. To that water, if you add NaCl is nothing but table salt. Immediately that NaCl is going to be dissolved. Easily it will be soluble. We know that one. Simply by stirring itself, NaCl is going to be dissolved. Okay. Let us consider glass full of water. Up to here. First I added one pinch of salt. It is dissolved. Second I added one more pinch of salt. It was also dissolved. Like that I am going on adding the salt to the water. Okay, 1 gram is added first. Next to that again 1 gram is added. Next again 1 gram is added. Like that I am adding, keep on adding that 1 gram like that. We are adding, keep on adding. Finally, we will get one condition that after preparation of one type of solution, even though if you add 1 gram of salt, that NaCl will not be dissolved. Extra that 1 gram of salt will not be dissolved. Okay, for example, in this glass I have taken 100 ml of water. How much water I have taken? 100 ml of water. 100 ml of water can dissolve maximum 36 grams of NaCl. So in this 100 ml of water, up to 36 grams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like that 36 times I added 1 gram like that. Directly we can take 36 grams of salt by weighing and you can add that one. So I dissolved the 36 grams of salt in water. How much amount of water? 100 ml. This is called saturated solution of salt. To this 36 grams of salt plus 100 ml of water, if you add 1 more gram of NaCl, this 1 more gram of NaCl will not be dissolved. One gram of salt I have taken initially and added like that I added 36 times. So this 36 times of salt will become 36 grams of salt to 100 ml of water. Maximum amount of salt, 36 grams, can be dissolved in 100 ml of water. Further, if you add, it will not be dissolved. If you observe in your home also, you can observe, no problem. This extra 1 more gram of NaCl is added to 100 ml of gram, in which it is already contained by 36 grams. This extra 1 gram will not be dissolved. Okay, from this what we can understand? 36 grams of salt dissolved in 100 ml of water is called saturated solution of NaCl. 36 grams of salt dissolved in 100 ml of water is called saturated solution of NaCl. In the same way, for every solute, we have certain amount fixed with 100 ml of water, that is called saturated solution of particular solute. For example, sugar is also going to be dissolved up to certain extent only. Sugar is also dissolved in water up to certain extent. Okay, let us think that 40 grams of sugar can be dissolved in 100 ml of water, maximum extent ma, that is called saturated solution of sugar. Saturated solution of sugar. This is for example only I told. Once you can refer and you can tell the value ma. For understanding purpose only I told that 40 grams of sugar dissolved in 100 ml of water is called saturated solution of sugar. Okay, till this, why did I tell all these things? Saturated solution. Now you will be clear with that one. Our topic heading is equilibrium in solutions. In that, A, solid in liquid solutions we have seen. Okay, now I am going to take our topic ma and I am going to explain that one. Let us consider saturated solution of sugar. I have taken saturated solution of sugar, means to one beaker I have taken 100 ml of water. In that maximum extent 40 grams I told na, that 40 grams of sugar is added to the water. Now this is called saturated solution of sugar, means 40 grams of sugar plus 100 ml of water. This 40 grams of sugar is in dissolved state. 40 grams of sugar is in dissolved state. Up to that, is it clear? Okay. This is called saturated solution of sugar. To the saturated solution of sugar, further I am going to add small amount of sugar. To the saturated solution, if you add further amount of sugar, that sugar will not be dissolved. Is it correct? Then it is appeared as like a small heap. It is appeared. This is called undissolved sugar. This is called undissolved sugar. Inside the solution already dissolved sugar is there. How much amount of dissolved sugar is there? 40 grams. And this is undissolved sugar. Now we are going to tell that this undissolved sugar and dissolved sugar is in dynamic equilibrium. This undissolved sugar and dissolved sugar is in dynamic equilibrium. So this type of equilibrium is observed in solutions in which solute is solid and solvent is water. Na? That's why this is solid in liquid solutions. What is it? Solid in liquid solutions. Now there is a equilibrium established between undissolved sugar and dissolved sugar. Okay, let us consider at the time of equilibrium, 5 particles of dissolved sugar is converted to undissolved sugar. Five particles of dissolved sugar is converted to undissolved sugar. At the same time, 5 particles of undissolved sugar will be converted to dissolved sugar. Meaning these two are in contact only, na? This undissolved sugar and dissolved sugar. Some particles of undissolved sugar will be converted to dissolved. At the same time, some particles of undissolved sugar will be converted to dissolved sugar. they will be crystallized to form dissolved sugar, undissolved sugar, and some undissolved sugar particles, they are going to be converted to dissolved sugar. Like that, forward process and backward process both are going to be taken place. Dissolved sugar is converted to undissolved sugar, and undissolved sugar is converted to dissolved sugar with same rates. Okay, forward process is called dissolution. Dissolved sugar is converted to undissolved sugar is called crystallization. Sorry ma. Dissolved sugar is converted to undissolved sugar, that is called crystallization. Undissolved sugar is converted to dissolved sugar is called dissolution. Both rate of crystallization and rate of dissolution are same at the time of equilibrium. Okay, see, dissolved sugar is converted to undissolved sugar, which is called crystallization, and undissolved sugar is converted to dissolved sugar, which is called dissolution. Both rate of crystallization and rate of dissolution are same, in which that is called equilibrium. So undissolved sugar and dissolved sugar are said to be in equilibrium here. Okay, are you clear ma? So first, what is meant by saturated solution of sugar? After that, what is this equilibrium in case of solids and liquid solutions? You are clear, I think. This one here they have proved this is dynamic equilibrium. By doing one experiment, they have tried to prove that one. What is that experiment? Let us see now. Whether this is dynamic equilibrium or not, by doing one experiment we can prove that one. Let us see carefully. I have prepared one saturated solution of sugar by using normal oxygen. What is the formula of sugar? C12H22O11, which is dissolved in water. This is called, initially I have taken normal sugar only. Okay, with this normal sugar I prepared saturated solution. So the saturated solution of sugar is with normal sugar only. So in dissolved state, all the sugar particles containing normal sugar. Next, to this saturated solution, I added some amount of sugar, which is called radioactive sugar. To this normal sugar solution, I added some amount of sugar from outside, that is called radioactive sugar. What is meant by radioactive sugar? C12H22O11 is the radioactive sugar formula, but in that oxygen isotope is not 16 isotope, it is 18 isotope. Oxygen have two isotopes, 8O16, 8O17, 17 this one. Like that, isotopes are present for oxygen. Previously, this sugar is containing normal oxygen, but this sugar is containing 8O17, which is called radioactive sugar. What is it? Radioactive sugar means when we observe this solution, this is dissolved sugar, this is undissolved sugar. Dissolved sugar must be normal sugar solution, normal sugar Undissolved sugar must be radioactive sugar. Is it correct? Because this is only we added from outside, which is radioactive in nature. Previously I prepared a solution, saturated solution with normal sugar only. But after some time, initially undissolved sugar is completely radioactive. Dissolved sugar is it purely normal. Purely means completely normal sugar, that is. After some time, already it is in equilibrium only. After some time, undissolved sugar contains both radioactive sugar plus normal sugar. After some time, undissolved sugar contains radioactive sugar plus normal sugar. Same, dissolved sugar is also contain radioactive sugar plus normal sugar. What is the meaning of this one? At the time of equilibrium, dynamic nature is there. Means some particles of radioactive sugar will be converted to undissolved state to dissolved state, and some particles of normal sugar is converted from dissolved state to undissolved state. So after some time, in undissolved state, both radioactive and normal particles are there. Same like that, in dissolved sugar also, both radioactive sugar and normal particles are there. From this you can understand that dynamic equilibrium is there. It is not static. If it is static, even after some time also, entire dissolved sugar must be normal only and undissolved sugar must be radioactive only. But it is not static, it is dynamic equilibrium. That's why some particles, suppose let us consider 100 particles of undissolved sugar are converted to dissolved sugar. Same way, 100 particles from dissolved sugar is converted to undissolved sugar. In that way, at the equilibrium, both radioactive sugar and normal sugar will be present in undissolved state, as well as radioactive sugar and normal sugar will be present in dissolved state also. By this is the supportive nature of explanation of dynamic equilibrium. From this it will be more clear what is the dynamic equilibrium, I hope. Is it clear, ma? This is about equilibrium in solutions first, that is solids in liquid solutions. Next B we have to see, that is gases in liquids. Gases in liquids. Let us see one thumbs up bottle or Coca-Cola bottle which is closed, new one. Okay, till that opening of that one, inside up to here we have liquid which is filled with carbon dioxide gas. Now this undissolved carbon dioxide, don't think that here carbon dioxide is not there, completely carbon dioxide is dissolved like that, don't think that one. Some amount of carbon dioxide is in undissolved state and some amount of carbon dioxide is in dissolved state. This is happened at high pressure. Okay, now in this Coca-Cola bottle or thumbs up bottle, whatever it is, undissolved carbon dioxide is in equilibrium with dissolved carbon dioxide. Undissolved carbon dioxide is in equilibrium with dissolved carbon dioxide in solution. Okay, this solution is happened by dissolution of gases in liquids. That's why we kept the heading gases in liquids. So in which equilibrium is established? Between which gases equilibrium is established? Dissolved gas is in equilibrium with undissolved gas. Dissolved gas is in equilibrium with undissolved gas. So as long as this mouth is not opened at high pressure, this one will be like that only. At once if you open the mouth of the this soft drink bottle, this carbon dioxide gas which is soluble will come out. That's why immediately we will get the sound, and brisk effervescence we will see in the liquid, bubbles we will observe. Is it correct? Because in manufacturing industry they will manufacture these bottles at high pressure. At high pressure, carbon dioxide solubility is more. Solubility of gases in liquids will be more. This one particularly we will study in solutions concept in 12th class. In 12th class you have second chapter solutions volume 1. In that this solubility of gases in liquids extra particularly deeply we will study. Okay, now simply I am telling here, at high pressure more amount of gas will be soluble in liquid. At once if you open the mouth of the glass bottle, this bottle, carbon dioxide solubility decreases. So when pressure is decreased, solubility of gas is also decreased to be reaching to new equilibrium. That's why the carbon dioxide is expelling out. That is called Henry's law. Henry's law we will study in class 12 chapter 2 solutions deeply. Now it is okay with this one. Now what is meant by Henry's law? When pressure is increased, solubility of the gas in liquid is also increased. When pressure is decreased, solubility of the gas in liquid is also decreased. That means pressure is directly proportional to solubility, or solubility is directly proportional to pressure. When pressure is increased, solubility also increases. Okay, ma? This is about Henry's law. Even this is happened oppositely for temperature. When temperature is increased, solubility of the gas decreases. When temperature is decreased, solubility of the gas increases. Those are inversely proportional. Ma? Temperature is inversely proportional to solubility. Temperature is inversely proportional to solubility. Pressure is directly proportional to solubility. This is about gases in liquids. Equilibrium is established between dissolved gas and undissolved gas. Equilibrium is established between dissolved gas and undissolved gas. Same way, equilibrium is established between undissolved sugar and dissolved sugar. That is solids in liquid solutions. This is gases in liquid solutions. This is about completion of physical equilibrium. Totally 5 processes we have seen. 5 processes. Those 5 processes are: first one, solid to liquid; second one, liquid to gas; third one, solid to gas. Okay, fourth one, those are in solutions, liquid in solid solutions; and fifth one, gases in liquid solutions. These are the 5 processes we have seen under the heading physical equilibrium. Now we will go through some conclusions after completion of this equilibrium, physical equilibrium. Those conclusions we will see now, and we will shift to chemical equilibrium after completion of those conclusions. Is it okay, ma? Let us see the textbook. For solid to liquid equilibrium, there is only one temperature, melting point at 1 atmosphere, at which the two phases can coexist. If there is no exchange of heat with the surroundings, the mass of the two phases remain constant. This is the point coming under solid to liquid. Next, liquid to vapor equilibrium, the vapor pressure is constant at a given temperature. So when temperature is not changed, their vapor pressure is also not going to be changed. This is happened in liquid and vapor. For dissolution of solids in liquids, the solubility is constant at a given temperature. When temperature is not changed, that solubility is remained same. Means number of undissolved particles and dissolved particles are same, but rate of forward process and backward process will be taken place. Next, fourth one. For dissolution of gases in liquids, the concentration of a gas in liquid is proportional to the pressure of the gas over the liquid. These observations are summarized in table 7.1. that is liquid to vapor, pressure of H2O constant at given temperature. Solid to liquid, melting point is fixed at constant temperature. Solute to solute, solution this one. Concentration of solute in solution is constant at a given temperature. Gas to gas, that means gas and aqueous gas, both are in equilibrium. That is gas in liquid solution. Concentration is constant at a given temperature. So if it is gas in liquid, that is concentration constant. If it is solid in liquid, there also concentration is constant. Solid in liquid, directly conversion, melting point is fixed. Liquid to vapor conversion, pressure of water is getting constant, means pressure of that liquid is getting constant. Is it okay, ma? And finally, general characteristics of equilibria involving physical process. Let us see some general characteristics of equilibria involving the physical process. The physical process discussed above, showing characteristics are common to the system at equilibrium. Equilibrium is possible only in a closed system at a given temperature. These are important points, underline them. Equilibrium is possible only in a closed system. In an open system, equilibrium is not at all possible because the gases can be escaped and they will be mixed with the atmosphere, in which they cannot come to the contact with the liquid, in which continuously liquid is going on towards the gas, and there is no chance of equilibrium. Next, both the opposing process occur at the same rate and there is a dynamic but stable condition. Dynamic equilibrium but stable condition. All measurable properties of the system remain constant. When equilibrium is attained for a physical process, it is characterized by constant value of one of its parameters at a given temperature. Table 7.1 lists some fixed quantities. Already we have seen those are fixed quantities at constant equilibrium. The magnitude of such quantities at any stage indicates the extent to which the physical process has processed before reaching equilibrium. So by seeing those physical properties, we can understand whether it is going to attain equilibrium or not. These are the general characteristics of equilibria involving physical process. Okay, ma? By this we completed what are the processes involved in physical equilibrium. Now we have to see equilibrium in chemical process under heading dynamic equilibrium. Even here also it is going on with dynamic equilibrium only. If a equilibrium is established in chemical process, that is called chemical equilibrium. That is called chemical equilibrium. Is it okay? First thing is, before going to the chemical equilibrium, I would like to share with you, that is rate of the reaction. Strictly speaking, this rate of the reaction we will study in next 12th class chemical kinetics chapter. Okay, ma? But that is somewhat related to equilibrium also. That's why here itself I am telling here that rate of the reaction. What is the definition of rate of reaction? Is it clear? Now coming to this rate of the reaction, let us consider A plus B gives rise to C plus D. This is the reaction happening. A and B are reactants. They will undergo reaction to form C and D. These are products. A and B are reactants and C and D are products. At time t is equal to 0, 1 molar A is there and 1 molar B is there. C and D are 0. Means reaction is not started. Observe the terms clearly, whatever I am teaching for you. This is initial time t is equal to 0 I did not mix A and B. In two separate beakers, I have taken A and B. Those are 1 molar solution and 1 molar solution. At the time, C and D will not be there. That's why I have taken 0 and 0. Is it okay? Now coming to the time. At time t is equal to 30 seconds. Meaning of this one, I mixed A and B into one beaker. Correctly at the time I am going to mix A and B into one beaker. I will switch on the stopwatch. Then time is going to be started. 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Now I checked at time 30 seconds. I observed that concentration of A became 0.4 molar. Same concentration of B also became 0.4 molar. Meaning 1 molar concentration initially we have taken A as well as B. It became 0.4 molar and 0.4 molar B. Meaning of this one, some amount of A and some amount of B will be reacted to form C and D. So certain amount of C will be formed as well as certain amount of D also will be formed. That one I am going to write it as 0.6 molar and 0.6 molar. Are you understanding? Now, what is the initial concentration of A? 1 molar. What is the final concentration of A? 0.4 molar. 0.4 molar. Now, rate of reaction with respect to A is equal to rate of reaction with respect to A is equal to change in concentration of A divided by change in time. Change in concentration of A divided by change in time. That is called rate of the reaction with respect to A. So, rate of reaction with respect to A is equal to initial concentration of A is 1 minus final concentration of A is 0.4 divided by final time 30 minus initial time 0 is equal to 1 minus 0.4, it is 0.6 divided by 30. 0.6 divided by 30 is called rate of reaction with respect to A. Same way, we can write rate of reaction with respect to B also, rate of reaction with respect to C also, rate of reaction with respect to D also we can write. Okay, so with respect to reactants or with respect to products, whatever the thing might be, we can explain the rate of the reaction definition as change in concentration of reactants or products in unit time is called rate of the reaction. Change in concentration of reactants or products in unit time is called rate of reaction. Not only this one, in physics also you might have seen that. What is the acceleration definition? Rate of change in velocity is called acceleration. Rate of change in velocity is called acceleration. I think you might have written that final velocity minus initial velocity or initial velocity minus final velocity divided by initial time minus final time, like that you might have written. Same like that here also. Initial concentration is more than final concentration. That's why initial concentration minus final concentration divided by final time minus initial time, I wrote it as rate of the reaction with respect to A. And I concluded the rate of the reaction definition as Change in concentration of reactants or products in unit time is called rate of the reaction. With respect to reactants, we can write R. Decrease in concentration of reactants in unit time is called rate of reaction, or increase in concentration of products. While time is going on, reactants concentration decreases and products concentration increases. While time is going on, reactants concentration decreases and products concentration increases. That's why I am writing here increase in concentration of products in unit time is called rate of the reaction. All the three definitions, anything is correct only. Please all of you observe in what way I am teaching for you. Rate of the reaction is very important here to understand the next coming equilibrium chapter, chemical equilibrium. So be particular about that one. All the three definitions. Change in concentration of reactants or products in unit time is called rate of reaction, or decrease in concentration of reactants in unit time is called rate of reaction, or increase in concentration of products in unit time is also called rate of reaction. Is it okay? This is about rate of the reaction explanation. Now we have to go through law of mass action. Okay, see, to explain this law of mass action, I would like to explain with one experiment. I have taken a round bottom flask which is taken with zinc plus dilute H2SO4, zinc plus dilute H2SO4. Here zinc is there, kept with 2-hole rubber cork. Through 1 hole, crystal funnel is kept inside the solution. Through 1 hole, delivery tube is inserted, which is fitted with balloon. Same way, I am going to take round bottom flask with the same metal zinc, but I am going to replace the dilute H2SO4 with concentrated H2SO4. Means more amount of H2SO4 is there in water. That is called concentrated H2SO4. Equipment, everything, arrangement is same. For the delivery tube, I kept one balloon. Okay, now I started the reaction and I started the stopwatch. In same time, 30 seconds. Same time I gave for both the reactions, 30 seconds. I observed that this balloon is inflated with hydrogen gas, but the size of the balloon is small. But here, the size of the balloon is very big. Here is also hydrogen gas is present. Here also hydrogen gas is present. Okay, now what we can explain? The reaction here taken place is zinc is going to react with H2SO4 to form ZnSO4 plus H2 gas. This H2 gas is escaped through the delivery tube and it enters into the balloon, then balloon is inflated. Even here also hydrogen gas is entered into the delivery tube and that is inflated. But in which experiment more amount of hydrogen is formed? In which experiment more amount of hydrogen is formed? When we have taken concentrated H2SO4, we are able to see the balloon size is bigger. That means more amount of product is formed when we take concentrated H2SO4. When more amount of product is formed, more amount of reactants are converted to products in which rate of the reaction is high. Is it correct or not? Rate of the reaction means more amount of products are converted into more amount of reactants. More amount of reactants are converted to products in same time. Important point, remember, same time I gave. For the both experiments, I gave 30 seconds time only. Okay, here more amount of hydrogen gas is liberated, but here less amount of hydrogen gas is liberated as product. This is product only, na? Hydrogen is the product. In which condition hydrogen is more? Means product is formed more. That is concentrated H2SO4. That means when concentration of the reactants increased, its rate of the reaction also increases. When concentration of reactants increased, here zinc plus H2SO4. This H2SO4, when concentration is increased, rate of the reaction also increases. That is very important point I am going to tell for you. Now once again, when concentration of reactants are increased, rate of the reaction means fastly the reaction will be taken place and easily the products are going to be formed highly. In the same time, more amount of hydrogen is formed. That is nothing but rate of the reaction for zinc plus concentrated H2SO4 is more when compared to zinc plus dilute H2SO4. From this we can confirm one thing, that is rate of the reaction is directly proportional to concentration of reactants. When concentration of reactants is increased, rate of the reaction also increases and the reaction will be completed more fastly, or the reaction will be formed as products will be highly in the same time. Both ways we can tell. When the reaction is completed within less time, that is called rate of the reaction is high. When the more amount of products are formed in same time, then also rate of the reaction is high. Okay, so from this one conclusion we can make, that is rate of the reaction is directly proportional to concentration of reactants. Is it okay? I am making one generalization, that is called law of mass action. I am going to make one generalization, that is called law of mass action. Now according to that law of mass action, let us consider one reaction with example Ma plus Nb gives rise to small c capital C plus small d capital D, where M comma N comma C comma D are coefficients, stoichiometric coefficients. These are called stoichiometric coefficients. Okay, for this reaction, now I am going to write rate of the reaction is directly proportional to concentration of reactants, na? Okay, rate of the reaction is directly proportional to concentration. I am mentioning it as square bracket ma, concentration of A raised to the power of its coefficient M into concentration of B raised to the power of its coefficient N. What is the coefficient of A present? M. That one I am writing to the power of concentration of A, where square bracket of A is called concentration of A, square bracket of B is called concentration of B. When concentration of reactants is increased, rate of the reaction also increases. So rate of the reaction is directly proportional to concentration of A power m into concentration of B power n. This implies rate of the reaction is equal to, I am removing this directly proportionality and I am going to keep one constant, K into concentration of m in A power m into concentration of B power n. Rate of the reaction is equal to K into concentration of A power m into concentration of B power n. These are all I am applying for forward reaction only. Okay, same like that we can apply for backward reaction. In equilibrium topic I will show how to apply that rate of the law of mass action for equilibrium. At the time I will teach for you. But for understanding that one, these are all required with basics. That's why I am teaching here itself. Please understand carefully. Now, rate of the reaction is equal to K into concentration of A power m into concentration of B power n, where K is called rate constant. This is called law of mass action and this equation is called rate equation. This equation is called rate equation. Okay, ma? Now, from where we started here, I want to know for you, I want to teach for you law of mass action. I have started with law of mass action. Under that, I have taken two vessels with zinc and dilute H2SO4 and zinc and concentrated H2SO4. We observed that in which condition more amount of hydrogen is liberated. According to that, we wrote one conclusion that rate of reaction is directly proportional to concentration of reactants. Okay, when concentration of reactants increased, rate of the reaction also increases. Like that we have seen, and depending on that I am going to write the rate equation also for forward reaction. For generalization, Ma plus Nb gives rise to Cc plus Dd. For this, rate of the reaction is directly proportional to concentration of A power m into concentration of B power n. Rate equation, this is called rate of the reaction equal to K into concentration of A power m into B power n. K is called rate constant. For example, N2 plus 3H2 gives rise to 2NH3. For this reaction, forward reaction, I am going to write rate of the reaction. Rate of the reaction is equal to some K, rate constant, into concentration of N2 power 1, because here 1 is the coefficient of N2, into concentration of H2 power 3. What is the coefficient of H2? 3. What is the coefficient of N2? 1. So I am writing here K into concentration of N2 power 1 into concentration of H2 power 3. Okay, this is the rate of the reaction for forward reaction. N2 plus 3H2 gives rise to 2NH3. Same thing we can apply in equilibrium for forward reaction also, backward reaction also. At the time how we are going to apply and how we are going to get our required details, all these things in next coming classes we will see. Okay, and in today's class we have completed with physical equilibrium and we have started also chemical equilibrium, but directly instead of going to chemical equilibrium, I have taught for you rate of the reaction first. After completion of the rate of the reaction, how to write the rate of the rate equation. Okay, for any forward reaction or backward reaction we can write the rate equation depending on reactants only. That one everything I have detailedly explained. This is about today's class. Please go through the classes carefully and practice them. This is also one of the physical chemistry topics which are containing large number of problems. Okay, when you practice then it will be easy only. This is about today's class. In next class we will go through some examples present in equilibrium and how we are going to teach them we will see. Okay, thank you all, have a nice day.